You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Hosted by Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner Ian McMeans and Assistant Public Information Officer and Online Editor Stephanie Hackey.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner Ian McMeans.
And I'm Assistant Public Information Officer and Online Editor Stephanie Hackey.
Our guest today is Lieutenant Dan Morris from the Mount Lebanon Fire Department.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Dan is also municipality's emergency management coordinator.
Wear many hats in the fire department.
Yes,
that
awesome.
is one of them.
So tell us a little bit about your role. What do you do, both in the fire department and as an emergency management coordinator?
So in the fire department, we have 18 career staff and middle of the 40s volunteers right now. I'm currently assigned to the fire prevention, where predominantly focus on inspections and some other things that go along with that. But one of the ancillary roles is the emergency management coordinator, which is what we're here today to talk about. We also go in, responses. Obviously, that's an important part of the job, but fill in for firefighter Chris in the school program. So I get all over the place, whether it's schools, buildings for inspections, and riding the fire truck down the street to answer the emergency calls.
Nice. So you're, obviously you said, wearing many hats, doing many different things, a jack of all trades, if you will.
Yeah, it's it's a very specialized, but there's also many different areas to specialize in. So kind of a jack of all trades, if you will.
Yeah. So how long have you been Mount Lebanon's emergency management coordinator?
So I've been the Mount Lebanon emergency management coordinator for a little over 2 years. Deputy Chief Butler retired in July of 21. Kind of filled in for him on a initial basis, but then there's the whole process to get appointed and whatnot. That happens, I think it happened in October officially, but basically since he retired in July of 21. So a little over 2 years.
Cool. So what all does that role entail?
So we do a lot of planning, a lot of behind the scenes things that no one really knows or wants to talk about typically. But a lot of planning, so putting things together, getting some information, a lot of networking and like liaison type things to talk to different agencies and kind of make sure everybody's the coordination happens whenever the events happen, whether it's a natural event like rain, flooding, thunderstorms, or a non-emergency event like some of the events that we have here in town.
So how do you prepare for emergencies then? What is this process that you go through?
So there are many different things that we kind of use to our advantage. It's almost like a trick question because how do you prepare for something that you don't know is going to happen?
Right.
So we rely on experience, not only our own experience from things that we've seen in the past and different emergencies and different calls and different things that we've seen, but we've also other cities, other places have similar climates. We learn from them some things that happen there. Other cities, they have different events, they have different emergencies, different things there. Natural disasters happen all over. So we kind of see what they do, and there's like best practices, and it almost comes back to the networking aspect where you reach out and you talk to those folks. Hey, we had a severe flooding issue, this is what we ran into. I'm from Johnstown, so a lot of people may know Johnstown very specifically for some flooding events.
Right.
Just a couple.
Yeah. 3 major ones to be exact. And I grew up, my mom worked at the Flood Museum, so I was kind of surrounded by all that information there for a long period of time. But a lot of different resources, different people have been through some of these things. You pull some of the best practices together. What resources did you need? What resources did you use? What do we have? Do we have enough? Who do we need to call to get more? We kind of put all that stuff together. The weather notification has been increasing steadily, so we're not really surprised by some of the severe events anymore. A lot, but whether it's emails or the phone app goes off now for different types of warnings and telling people to take cover and maybe go inside. All of that's getting better, so we kind of look for that from a perspective, and we put it all together and make some nice plans. Plans are kind of generic guides and checklists to kind of get you through a event that you don't really know when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, how severe. But the non-emergency events, I say non-emergency is, they're not emergencies, but they have potential to have problems, such as some of the large events in town, the parades, the 4th of July festival, all of those things there. So we kind of work with some of our other partners there, the police, the EMS, MRTSA, the fire department. We all kind of get together, and then we work with the other departments and kind of, hone in what's needed there. But I mean, in town, some of the ones that we get, with some regularity are flooding. That's not a surprise. Low-lying areas, a lot of rainfall. Hazardous materials to a lesser degree. We don't have any industry in town, so it's kind of a different animal. Some places have a lot of industry and they have a lot of hazmat. Ours is typically things traveling through or accidents in the home. That's kind of one that we run into periodically. You always, terrorism's on the mind, accidents. We don't have a train in town. A lot of people think rail train. East Palestine was a big, concern. But we don't have one in town. But there is one that's fairly active that runs through Castle Shannon. So it's something that we're always looking at some of that stuff and kind of ready to go. It might not be ours, but just by proximity, we have some significant involvement.
Right, yeah, and I guess we're kind of boxed in too, thinking of, there's the rail line that runs through Castle Shannon, then the one through Scott Township kind of that crosses, I guess it's Vanadium down there. That, those are kind of two routes that people from Mount Lebanon take to get to various places that cross either over, under, or around those rail tracks. So that could have an impact on traffic flow in town if something happened at one of those places. Absolutely.
Traffic flow, when you look at evacuation routes and those kind of things. So we're always kind of looking at that, and we have different plans to, here's our way out of this side and this side. And one of the ones that people don't really think about, but lots of travelers every day, is the LRT tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
So, the LRT tunnel is something that's kind of unique at, the stretch that goes from here to Dormont. And it's, it's underground, so, access is a different issue,
Right.
but we have plans for it. We train with it. We train, with some of the Port Authority folks and walk through and understand what they're doing and, the improvements that they're making too with the
Right.
smoke evacuation. That's huge. So a lot of that stuff is, behind the scenes stuff that no one ever thinks about,
Right.
and until it's closed overnight and they can't take the tea and, but after that, it's then it's just, it works and we have the things in line and ready to go.
Yeah, so it's kind of your job to worry about the things that people don't think about all the time so that they don't have to worry about them if something bad happens.
Yeah, like I said, it's behind the scenes, not real glamorous. It's not, the fire truck going down the road, beeping the horn, waving at kids, saving everybody. But it definitely is something that, there's a lot of work that goes into it and the preparation side of it, because if you don't have these relationships and you don't have some of these plans established ahead of time,
Right.
you can really run into trouble.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, to my knowledge too, there's kind of different levels of it too, that like if there's a large scale emergency, there's a county emergency management department that can come in and help manage it, and then there's the state department, the federal department, all that, depending on the scale of things.
Absolutely. So it's a tiered response, and that we have the local, and that, that's what we do with the fire department. Many hats, we do this. If it's something that exceeds our local capabilities or planning, we typically would be something larger that would stretch into multiple jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. And once you hit multiple jurisdictions, we say something happened in Castle Shannon and Mount Lebanon. We share a pretty good sized border with the train, so there's proximities there. That would kind of escalate to the county. They would send some people to help. They don't take over. They just come in and help, and they assist us with the process and anything that we might need, some resources, and and that's where you see like the larger ones that involve the state, and then like the one there in the Ohio and Pennsylvania border.
Yeah.
You get federal resources involved as well.
Yeah. Great. Well, we're going to take a short break so everyone here can have a quick drink of water, and we will be right back with more from Lieutenant Dan Morris on the municipality's emergency management procedures.
All right, this is just a friendly reminder that on October 4th, 2023, approximately 2:20 p.m., FEMA will be testing the emergency alert system. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that your TV, your radio, and your cell phone will all get the alert displaying the test message. It should last approximately 1 minute. On October 4th, 2023 at 2:20 p.m. The message will tell you it's a test and there's no action items to be taken.
Welcome back to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager Ian McMeans. We're here with Dan Morris from the Mount Lebanon Fire Department talking about emergency management.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here.
Not a problem, my pleasure.
We were talking about all different types of emergencies that you might be seeing at Mount Lebanon and how you prepare for them. So let's talk about, first of all, you're talking about the non-emergency events. Talk about those. How do you prepare for those and what might happen there?
So I'd call them non-emergency. Planned events is probably a better term because they're planned events that could have emergencies. But so in town here, we have a couple different ones that we do. Every year you have the Memorial Day Parade. It spans multiple jurisdictions, but
Right.
between Mount Lebanon, Dormont, and the city of Pittsburgh. But 4th of July down at Main Park, That's a big one there, and that's kind of we look at partners. We talk about partners. Partners for that is different from partners for the pumpkin patch parade, or maybe a natural disaster. We have different partners we work with there. In that case, there, I credit to David Dunallen with the rec department. He puts together a lot of stuff. He has the plan that he uses, and who does what, who's doing what do I need, and so he kind of takes the lead on that one, putting the information, but we kind of put it all together and we develop a emergency operation plan, and that plan there is just to kind of go through, get everybody on the same page, get phone numbers, contact, who is responsible for this event, who is responsible for this, what if this happens, and kind of get all that together and get it out to the the emergency responders and some of the department heads and staff that are working that event.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's even, like, to my knowledge, like contingency plans that if it's really hot, you need to have like cooling stations or water for people having, if there's heat stroke related things, or if it, get a pop up thunderstorm. What do we do if it starts raining and lightning, and how do you handle that?
Right, absolutely. So trying to get people to leave very quickly is always a problem, right? I'm having fun. I don't want to leave, but there's thunderstorms coming. So we have kind of plans for that. It's a watch, it's a warning, it's imminent, it's here. It's, we kind of develop that, hey, you got to leave, we're closing, we're done. And then the other side of it is, when you look at some of the, the more challenging areas, like we live in Western Pennsylvania. It's what's today, 90 degrees outside. We never know what the weather's going to be like. You talk July 4th, it could rain, it could be cold, it could be super hot, we could have storms. It's very challenging to predict the weather. So we kind of have some plans for all that. If the weather's over this, we're probably going to have, maybe a cooling down area or something in the shade with the misting fans, those sort of things to sort of, try to prevent people from, give them a break or reprieve from the heat. And then working with our partners, MRTSA, specifically, and some of those ones there, once the weather gets a little bit hotter and more humid, and we have, people are more prone to having those medical emergencies, they might staff another unit or two. It's additional staff just to kind of, help prevent, help recognize. But if somebody does have an issue, they have enough staff there to handle it. So a lot goes into it, working different areas with, the responses, the police response to it. Is it an area, do we have one or two officers? Do we have more? Certain things,
How do you determine all of that?
We just kind of look. They do hazard assessments. They do threat assessments. A lot goes into it to try to plan out. Is this relatively mundane?
Is it a lot of meetings?
A lot of meetings. Yes. Yeah. And emails. I mean, how many emails went out for Uptown Unveiled? So a lot of emails, a lot of meetings, and at the end of the day, it's how many people are we expecting plays in a part? Is it 100 people or is it 1,500? Is it 5,000? There's different thresholds with the state that requires different types of planning and medical plans specifically. As you hit the different thresholds, the difference between like a stadium and a Friday night football game, or do we need have multiple EMS units and first aid stations and those kind of things.
So if there's a community group out there that's planning an event, I'll just pick a couple random ones off the top of my head, like like Relay for Life does their whole thing at the stadium with the relay event. If someone's planning some type of community event, should they get in touch with you to kind of help them develop an emergency preparedness plan for their community event? Yeah,
they can get in touch. Oftentimes the number dictates it. If you're having 50 people in the park at a pavilion, that's like a birthday party. You don't really need to go out on that limb there.
Right.
But if you're going to have a large quantity, typically when you start shutting streets down and you run into some things like that, that's where we start looking at, okay, here's going to be a little bit more of a problem. We got people outside, they're congregated in areas that typically don't have people, hanging out at. So there's an element there. If they want to put a plan together, we can help them do that. I think the most important thing is going through like the municipal planning process and filling out, checking the boxes of what they're having, how many people, and those sort of things. And that way everybody can get involved and kind of put their 2 cents in to develop that plan.
Yeah. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want our residents to have fun at community events and not have to worry about
This is why it happens behind the scenes. So no one has to worry about it, and it goes off, and everybody's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
You worry just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
So, also we were talking about natural events, things like the weather, all of that. How do you prepare for Snowmageddon or something along those lines that you don't know is coming, and then all of a sudden here we are with 20 inches of snow?
So the challenge with some of that is, and it's interesting, hearing the stories from here. I didn't live here at the time. I lived somewhere else that's sort of business as usual, So we had like delays and stuff opened later in the day, but the day went on, and I hear stories here, and I'm like, oh, that's drastically different when you look at preparation and how you're dealing with that. And one of the biggest things with that is it's very hard to plan for. Again, Western Pennsylvania, we historically get large snowfalls, we get lots of rain, we get thunderstorms. We know that, so we kind of put together a hazard vulnerability assessment. And we personally work with the county on that. They kind of put one together, like a hazard mitigation plan. So here's what we expect to happen. Here's some of the things that, the priority, like how frequently will that happen? How severe will that happen? We look at that, we put it together, and that helps us shape some of the stuff that we have in the plans. So like hurricanes, while we don't get hurricanes and the storm surges in, the suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we get the remnants of it, so we get significant rainfall. We might not have a hurricane plan, but the rainfall from the hurricanes under cover under the flooding plan. So it's very, I don't say challenging, but there's a lot of guesswork involved and a lot of educated guesses based on history and 100-year storms, and you look at all that stuff puts together and kind of come up with what are we most concerned with in our area.
So you use the past from this area, you use what is happening in other areas that are similar to ours, you use data. I mean, is there anything else that you're pulling together for these plans?
A lot. I mean, that's mostly what it comes down to, is you're looking at data from what has happened for the natural ones. I mean, would it be can we get snow in July? I mean, at this point, I don't want to jinx it and say no, but
we're gonna knock on wood for that one.
History tells us no, we're not going to get a snowstorm in July. So we kind of use a lot of that stuff, put it together. And there's certain elements that it has to cover. Pennsylvania Title 35, it breaks it down. There's 3 parts. You have the basic plan, that's the public plan. There's functional checklists to help us, sort of navigate some of those different, hey, this is what we think is going to happen. What do we do if it does? Some functional checklists to get through that, and then we also have the Notification and Resource Manual, or NARM, if you will. What capabilities do we have in town here? And the nice thing about that is because you can reach out to some of your partners, your neighboring municipalities, and if we need this, to help dig out from Snowmageddon, who has that? You can go and source some of that stuff. And the biggest thing when it comes down to it is the tracking. COVID, we tracked expenses, we tracked this, we tracked certain things. The Snowmageddon, and the reimbursement process that goes along with that. That's an important part. It's unexpected costs for municipality. It's unexpected costs, and they try to recoup some of the dollars at the end of the day. As a taxpayer, I mean, I'm grateful for that. So there's a lot of things that we try to do to help, not only mitigate the problem, but mitigate the financial costs as well.
So you mentioned the resources that we have in town. What kind of training or simulations do fire and police and public safety entities all go through to kind of prepare for some of these things?
So we'll go to training first, because there's I don't say 2 different things, but there's training in the sense of like hands-on training. And I mean, what do you do for flooding? There's not a lot of training that goes for there, water removal. But the training, there's a lot of NIMS training, National Incident Management System training. There's certain ones, I think, was it G402 you did recently?
Yeah.
For elected and government officials. So there's different trainings and there's different pathways, and all of them kind of tie into the PIO rules. Right. And so as we go through some of that, you kind of build and kind of understand what your role is inside of the emergency. We open up our EOC in bigger events, and everybody kind of has certain roles that they fill in, but you need training to understand.
And EOC for our
EOC,
listeners?
Sorry, acronyms all over the place here. Emergency Operations Center. It's designed to support the incident. If you have an incident happening and the EOC, runs in the background, and you have people in there making decisions and trying to just, everybody has a certain role to play.
It's that command center, basically.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, it's the operations center where everybody, all the information comes there, and you're supporting the incident and trying to make the incident happen smoothly, and any needs that they may have. You're out in the middle of the street with something. The EOC kind of helps support that, and that's only, for very large events that would get stood up fully with all the people in there. But so when you talk about the simulations and the mock situations and the trainings and drills, so there's a whole there's a whole list of different things. You kind of start with, a seminar, you learn about something, and then at the end you have a full-scale exercise, and there's every step in the way. The full-scale exercise is designed to test the entire plan in the emergency responders' operations of the plan. What worked, what didn't work, the after action, the critical analysis of things afterwards is very vital to trying to make it better. And hey, that didn't work. We should change that or find a better way to do it. So as we go through some of that, we have a lot of different things every couple of years, and we do a lot with our partners. St. Clair Hospital is a huge partner. They support us with that, allowing us to actually transport people there with mock injuries. The high school, the school district, they've been very helpful with use of facilities. They had some of their drama club folks the last time we were at the high school, participated, and and they were great at the very, very animated patients with mock injuries. So that was actually, it was very helpful. You're in a situation and trying to make it as real as possible.
Absolutely.
So we work with some of those different folks in town. Anybody that it's buildings, or sometimes the building owners, those relationships where they'll let us use their building for something like this, and just it's great because it's a real life scenario. It's not people sitting around a table, trying to pretend. What if this happened? Well, I would do this, and then in real life, well, I can't do that.
Right. Right.
So it's very helpful, and you learn a lot of lessons there, and it's afterwards having those discussions with the folks from the school. You learn a lot. They learned a lot, and okay, well, we can't do that. That's a good point.
Right.
What if we can't be here for a few days?
Right.
Business has to happen. And
so when you're physically there doing it, it's totally different than on paper or reading in a book.
Absolutely, because everybody says, well, I would do this, I would do that, so hey, where's your printer that prints the checks? Because teachers, staff are still going to want to be paid, so we have to have that. So we learn a lot of the different things there. How do we handle these situations? That's the thing about continuity of operations, a COOP plan, if you will. We sort of found that out firsthand with COVID, when everybody sort of said, hey, okay, we're no longer at work, but you got to do it at home. So, that continuity happened. Business came and went, and now our job in the fire service, it's a little bit different because we physically have to be there, but a lot of the other municipality employees were working remote.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There were a lot of Teams meetings.
There was a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot of Teams meetings. Yeah. So
the library did a great job figuring out how to be able to continue to deliver services to people
programs.
even while not,
and when you look at that, the continuity part of it, right? Business has to happen. How do we make that happen? So whether it was put on paper prior to, or people shooting from the hip at the time of, it was a great opportunity to see how that, hey, if we had this all documented together, what we need, what everybody needs at their own house, and that would have been a great opportunity to really, it was a real life, continuity of operations plan test.
Right, absolutely. What types of emergencies have you seen in Mount Lebanon where your plans have been utilized?
Fortunately, we don't have too many where the plan is utilized, as designed. It's kind of like a worst case scenario. Right. But we do get some flooding, and we have some flooding events in town that we utilize pieces of them.
Right.
But so as time goes on and we learn from previous things, SARS, remember SARS?
Yes. Wow.
So that was one that's one that kind of developed the need for, hey, we need some type of pandemic planning. Mm-hmm. And then and I don't know which came first, I apologize here, but the swine flu and the avian bird flu, those were two things that kind of, so we start working more on some of the pandemic stuff. How would we go and distribute the medication if needed? So we, the point of distribution drills and things like that. So we kind of developed a lot of that, but it also, the pandemic aspect, got us thinking about, staffing and shortages in staffing and what's our contingency there. And then 2020, COVID happened. So as COVID happened, we, knock on wood, the fire department kind of weathered the storm very well from a people getting sick perspective. So that was very fortunate. But we had a plan in place. We had a plan in place for the staffing levels. We had a plan in place. We put together the purchase tracking mechanism fairly directly, and that was crucial to being able to recoup a little bit of the cost. So I'm saying knock on wood, but we have other stuff in there too. Like you can have structural collapses. You look at an older infrastructure. It's very it's unfortunate, but there's some times that those things sort of happen. I mean, it's an earthquake, so I don't know, was it 2011, I think?
Yeah.
That was a very confusing time, because it was the first time I ever experienced an earthquake.
That was weird.
The monitors were shaking, like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But, so you think it's there, it's a very low frequency.
Right.
But it could
Right.
happen, and fortunately it was relatively minor, and there wasn't a lot of structural damage, but that's one that you look at and say, hey, what do we do for this? What do we do for that? And it kind of dives in a little bit to some of the other things, but we don't have too much, of a we've been very fortunate, at least in my time here.
Let's knock on wood right
Yeah.
now,
Right.
so we can all.
I mean,
But in terms of, so these plans, once you've gone through a scenario, or once you've gone through like COVID, do you change the plan then based on what you saw and what you did?
Absolutely. I mean, that after action part, the AAR, the hot wash, whatever term you want to use, it's the review of the performance against the plan. Did the plan work? What aspects of the plan do we need to modify?
Right.
What aspects of the plan do we need to, get rid of, increase, improve upon, whatever. So it's an ongoing process, and as we go through some of that, it's brief enough where it kind of doesn't pinpoint or lock you into maybe a position you don't want to be in. But some of the functional checklists are great ways for, okay, hey, this happened. This is what I need to do. This is where we need to go. And then it's a very helpful document. Just kind of help push you in the right direction. To
Right.
help, handle or mitigate whatever the problem may be.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're worrying so our residents don't have to, is basically what I'm hearing here.
We do a lot of work here to make sure that if something bad would happen, we have a good grasp on how to handle it. And that's like I said, we work with the fire and police department work really
Right.
close together in some
Right.
of this, and MERTS too. They're not maybe a municipal entity, but
Right.
they work with us on developing some of this, and the special event plans especially, because a lot of that stuff, the fire department doesn't have a big role in that. We're just kind of the coordinator, and we help put things together.
Right.
And I guess police are more involved in some of those, the I don't want to say silly things, but some of the more petty things that happen. And then MERT's obviously the medical side of it,
Right.
and like the summertime, Uptown and Vale was a very hot day.
Right.
So
Right.
we have some of those things that
So
go
when you were
along
talking
with
about partners, those are your partners.
Absolutely. And then we partner with other folks, the county,
Yeah.
county, Allegheny County Emergency Services.
Right.
They have their EMA staff is absolutely great with the, any questions and helping to assist with some of this. A lot of resources there from a planning perspective. We look at just other partners too, the news, getting
Right.
things out there.
Right. Now, in terms of if there's a time when they need to know something, how do they go about getting signed up for Lebo Emergency so they can be notified?
All right, so the Lebo Emergency is kind of it's a newer thing that we have. It's a way for us to quickly push information out to the residents. Now, we do have kind of the generic list of Verizon phone numbers
Right.
that we're able to send things out. So, hey, I never signed up for that, but I got this phone call telling me about something happening. And we kind of limit it to things that are like only very critical.
Right,
things
this
that
is
you
not
need
a
to
Lebo
know.
alert where the
Right.
pool is closed for the afternoon. This is
Right.
an absolute emergency.
Right.
Stay in your house.
Right. These are very,
Yes.
very. I mean, we don't use it frequently. I think
Right.
last year might have been one time.
Right.
But they're very, high, highly important events that
Right,
have,
right.
very critical information that you need to do or not do very quickly. So
I think the one time I remember there was a vehicle carrying hazardous materials that got into a crash in town on one of the roadways, and like people were told like don't travel this roadway
Right.
because
Right.
there was a
Right.
potential chemical hazard or something.
yeah, and there's all sorts of different reasons why we could do it, but
Right.
police incidents, right? Hey, this is happening now, and we need to tell those residents that if you live there, stay in your house, don't come
Right.
out, or you need to leave, whatever the case is. But this is what Lebo Emergency is for. It's not Lebo Alert saying, hey, the street's closed, you have to find a new way to go to work today, or
Right,
like you
right.
said, the pool's closed.
Right.
It's
Those
vital
are Lebo
information.
alerts,
It's
not
vital
Lebo
information,
Emergency.
but that comes through Lebo Alerts, and it's designed, to more of an informational
Right,
campaign.
right.
Where Lebo Emergency it's the information right now. So in addition to having the numbers that we have, that the generic ones that are like in the phone book kind of number, there's a lot of folks are doing away with that sort of number. So if you would like to sign up for it, you can sign up for yourself, your family, and it's kind of based on where your address is in town. The sign up is on the website. it's 1 or 2 times a year is we probably average lately.
Right.
And if it's something happens, on one side of town, it doesn't affect you. On the other side, we try to limit it to that, so we're not bothering.
But this is a list you
sorts of
want to
people.
be on.
It's a list of This is a list that I'm on, and it's something that when something happens, we need to know what do I need to do to keep myself or my family
Right.
safe. So
Right.
that's something that's on there. It's on the website. It's called Lebo Emergency. It's powered by Code Red. There's graphics for it, but it's on the About page under the Alerts tab.
And that's mountlebanon.org.
MountLebanon.org,
Go-to.
yes.
Yep.
The About page, and then on the Alerts tab, and it's Lebo Emergency. It kind of explains it there, and there's a nice, helpful PDF of step-by-step instructions, and it takes you right to the link.
While you're
Do
there,
you
check
have
out
to-
the new website.
Oh yes, that
Yeah.
too. Do you have to live in Mount Lebanon to sign up for Lebo Emergency, or if you have like a older family member that lives in the community and you live out of town, can you sign up to kind of keep tabs on what's going on in their neighborhood?
So I would sign up, right? If my mom lived here in town,
Right.
I would sign up with her address, and
Right.
I would probably include her so she knows what's happening
Yes.
if she wasn't already. But then I would want to know what's happening as well. And some folks live in town or do not live in town, but they work in town. If you
Right.
sign up with your work address, that's very important.
Right.
Now, at 2 a.m, you may get something if it's happening near your work and you're not there. But at the same time, that would be something that could be helpful for you on your way into work.
Right, absolutely.
Hey, I can't go that way, or that street is closed, or I want to avoid that area. Hey, boss,
Yeah.
this is going on. I'm going to be a little bit delayed today. So there's different ways that you can kind of help cater it to what your specific need may be, whether
Right.
it's business or a loved one who lives in town.
Definitely.
Great. Well, thank you very much for all your time today. We appreciate you being on the show, and that's all for this episode of Inside Lebo. Tune in next time for more.
Yeah, this episode was produced by Carrie Monyo with music by Drew Monyo and graphics by Chris Leeper. Thank you again.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.